Today on Always Be Connecting, we are going to talk about the psychology of sales and trust in marketing. And a great case study for that is the industry of loans, as there has been many instances through the ages of where it has been used for good and when it has been used for bad. And to talk to us about that is our friend Julio, mortgage broker.
Yes.
Hello, Julio.
Hey, Lindsay. How you going?
You're good. Tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
I run a business called Loan Market Apex. We are a mortgage broking company, although we touch every area of finance. I come from a background of banking, mortgage broking within the corporate side, and I've had a bit of experience in the non-bank space as well, which gave me a bit of exposure to the commercial lending and development finance and all that stuff. So I've had quite a journey over the last 10 years. But yeah, I have had that sort of banking experience, which propelled me to, or gave me the basics to then dive into a lot of other areas of finance and seeing the big, beautiful world of lending. So, yeah.
So you're seeing it from behind the curtain.
Yes.
And occasionally the public gets to sort of get a little bit of a peek, especially in retrospect. So for me, looking back when I was a teenager, early 20s, obtaining finance, looking at, and at the time, screwing it up entirely and, feeling sense of shame and confusion and having problems with money. Looking back on it, sort of like late 90s, early 2000s, I can see the advertisements and realise that I was somewhat targeted.
Yep.
And they knew the outcome before it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So there's a big sense of distrust.
Of course.
However, money lending is an act that everyone needs to.
At some stage, yes. You will need to eventually borrow money at some stage in your life, I believe. In order to make money, you have to have money. And most of us struggle with the initial capital, which is why we actually have to borrow that money, be it credit cards, car loans, home loans eventually. But yeah, I was in the same boat as you. I got into trouble early when I started out at the bank. I didn't really know how a credit card worked. And I myself, as I learned, realized the difference between compounding interest versus simple interest, which high level, like, a personal loan will significantly always be better than a credit card, just due to the nature of how they calculate interest and nothing else. But I think this is all behind a veil almost, like you said, that I see things through now where, you can identify certain things from a client's perspective that maybe it's disinformation, maybe it's just misinformation, or maybe they just heard the wrong thing and they chose a particular product based on pretty frivolous factors. So familiarity, trust in that their friend made it work for them. So now it's going to work for me. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think that's where a lot of people get confused because especially in the age of information with social media, the problem's gone from one person having misinformation to tens of thousands having the misinformation.
Yeah.
And then they're all relying on sources which, they may not have the experience. They may not be able to explain it clearly. And I always think that information plus understanding is knowledge, right? And knowledge is power, okay? Information is everywhere. But when I discuss loans or even credit cards, debt consolidation, things like that with people, they can give me the information, but when I ask them to contextualize it, they can't explain it, or it hasn't been explained to them.
Or they've been explained to explain it in a particular way.
In a particular way that sells it to them. So then I find they're selling it to me, and I'm thinking, well, don't sell it to me. Explain to me why this is in your best financial interest. And when you peel that back, more often than not, they don't have the answers. Because it's like me trying to explain to my dentist why I need braces. He's going to know. I'm not going to know. I can tell him my teeth aren't straight, but which teeth? How much do you need? You know what I mean? Like that sort of contextualized from a personal level, it's similar to a financial level, because unless you go through your financial position, unless you analyze your own budget, what you're planning to achieve in the next 2 to 5 years, that allows us to sort of go down a particular path. Yeah. Whereas if I'm just looking to make a quick buck off you right now, no worries, I'll sell to you and I will get you to accept. But I need more than that. I need not just the information, I need the understanding behind it for you to be aware. Because the minute you walk away from me with a loan that I've given you, it's your loan. I'm not going to have to pay it off.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? So that's, for me, that's paramount, that the client is informed. And again, to your point earlier that you were being sort of targeted, Australia's, as we all know, they're very property crazy. You know, it's everywhere on the news at all times.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that are hitting you from, you know, Google, you know, the ads that come up, or your phone that definitely doesn't listen to you, that just has ads up on social media for you for no reason. It's all it's basically streamlined to get you to fixate on properties or newer cars or just keeping up with the Joneses, effectively.
Yeah.
And from that marketing perspective, I think people get caught up and they will always find, and I think as humans, we all try to focus on the confirmation bias, which is, I want this and I believe I can afford it. Why can't I have it?
Yeah.
And I think finding somebody that tells you, hey, you've spent $2,000 on Uber Eats this month, that's maybe why you can't have it. You know what I mean? There's got to be some rationale behind it before you take on any kind of debt, because the way I explain it to people is debt is risk. How much risk are you willing to take?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's where the information plus the understanding comes into play.
So let's break down the relationship a little bit between what does the bank want, what does the person want,
yep,
and what's all the stuff in between, sort of like break it down into parts. What's the bank want?
So the bank wants... hard to say which bank. Basically, most mainstream lenders...
John Doe Bank.
John Doe Bank. So John Doe Bank wants a safe lend. So their risk guys get together in a big room and they say, okay, we want a property in a metro area. We don't want to lend more than 80 to 90% of its actual value to the client. And we want the client to have stable income.
Yeah.
Or stable employment history, at least.
Yeah.
We want their expenses to be within a range that we find acceptable. We don't want any red flags such as, you know, the gambling expenditure or things like that. And, you know, a good credit history. And I think, to the information point, credit history, perhaps back in the day, before I started banking, played a bigger part perhaps in the sort of analysis of credit analysis that we do. Now it's more so, is your credit history good or is it okay? You're more than likely going to get a loan. You know,
okay.
But people, it's a bit of an urban legend that declines go on your credit file. And I tell that to everyone. I provide a credit report at all times to my clients before they engage with me. And I'm like, this is where you sit right now. And they're all like, well, I have a good credit rating. That means that I can borrow more money. No, it doesn't. As somebody with a 600 credit rating that earns $1 million a year can borrow much more money than somebody earning 100K with a 1,200 credit score.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so that side of it has been pushed to have a good credit rating. Have a good credit rating. Yes, by all means, do not let that get away from you.
Yeah.
But the banks look at it as only a portion of the whole picture.
Yeah.
From a client perspective, what do they want? Well, they always want to have the best house on the street. They always want to have the nicest car. And they always want to pay the cheapest rates. But, I mean, John Doe Bank may not take vacant land or may not take self-employed clients, but they may have the best rate. Explaining that to a self-employed client who wants to buy land, that's where the sort of context has to come into play.
Yeah.
Right? So from that perspective, clients always want the cheapest. And by all means, you should always pay the cheapest if you can. But the tagline that a lot of brokers use is, we will get you the best rate for you. You know, I mean, I could promise you to get you the best rate on the market, but what does that mean when your situation doesn't fit what the bank's market is offering, right? So that, from that perspective, and for me, myself, I just want people to understand that their finances, or that the mortgage doesn't end once you've got it. You have to live with it. You have to adjust to it.
Yeah, right.
And you have to make a plan for it, because it's going to be with you for 30 years.
So whatever happens, the customer wants this and the bank wants this.
Yep.
So there's going to be grievances of having to do something you didn't really want to do at the beginning.
Correct.
In the middle.
Correct. But the bank sort of sets the rules, because they're the ones that have what you want, which is the money to acquire the asset.
And they have the liability. Do they have the liability, or do you?
To an extent, but really, no. Okay. It's you who's taking on the risk. They're obviously taking the risk if you just jump up and go to a non-extradition country and say, see you later, I'm not going to pay my mortgage. But with any secured lending, be it you put your car up for security, you put a house up for security, they'll write it off, sell the asset, recoup their losses, put it back up on the market, and away we go. So
instantly, you have got, because you're negotiating, and some things you're going to get and some things you're not going to get, then there's a sense of frustration, or
like a power imbalance.
Like, oh, maybe they got me on that clause, or maybe they didn't. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a sense of, oh, they've screwed me.
Yes, and again, this is a sort of conversation that turns into the long-term relationship of banks with their clients. You know, whenever I speak to somebody, I ask them, when's the last time your bank called you to save you money? It's a bit of a tagline, but it works magic, because the reality is, I know firsthand, we'll call you to get your home loan. Once I've got your home loan and I've hit my sales target and I've got my bonus and I've got my promotion, good luck with the next guy behind me, because now I've moved on to bigger and better things.
Yeah.
I think the brokers that expand their businesses, or at least even the lenders that sort of expand their business within a business in a bank, they're there long term, and they manage their existing clientele as well as they manage their new clients. Banks inherently will adjust their rates according to the market, but newer clients will always have a better seat at the table than the existing clients. And I think that's a fallacy that's, again, being pushed onto people. When I started in 2014, that this didn't take place, but I heard people when they came into the branch and they would tell me, well, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you could just go speak to the branch manager and he'd lower your rate. And then me trying to explain to them that that's not how it works now. And it hasn't worked that way for the last 10 years.
Okay.
It's all automated, or a lot of it is automated. They feel hard done by. And then they think, you know, I've been loyal to this bank for 40 odd years. And then, you know, and we've talked about it before, how the reality of it is the bank wants to continuously grow their book.
Yeah.
And the client wants to continuously save money. So who's going to win?
Well, I had a similar. I haven't got a mortgage, but I do have a lease, a business lease.
Yep.
And I've got a similar relationship with the landlord. When you're going through contracts, it's always difficult. Like, there's always things that you're fighting for, and some things you got to let go. And I remember at the end of it, like, and then sort of feeling frustrated at the first few months of settling in, and then thinking, you know, like, he's a guy, I'm someone, like, why can't we just chill out? And like, so I sent him a Christmas card, and he was like, oh, no one's ever sent me a Christmas card before. And like, and I'm like, okay, well, like, maybe if we turn some frustrations around into positivity, then that's sort of maybe that's going to lead to more positive outcomes anyway in the
of
end.
course.
So like, do you see that with bank relationships? Does that happen with you in the middle of it? Are you a negotiator? Are you a pacifier in some ways?
I am a mediator a lot of
That's
the
the
times.
word. Yeah.
Having said that, look, I think yes, to your point, there is a time to negotiate. That mainly comes down to policies, though. So when we're trying to sort of live in the grey that the credit policy says this, and the client is just outside of it, hey, let's see if we can give me an exception based on the strength of the client's profile, right?
Yeah.
So they tick, the credit report is amazing, the income is amazing, their business may only be trading 22 months instead of 24 months, but can you give me an exception based on the trajectory and everything else? So, they're putting down 50% deposit, something like that, right? That's as far as the negotiation will go.
Yeah.
With regards to sort of retaining the client, because they're unhappy due to the rate, unless, and people don't like hearing this, unless you're owing over $750,000, the bank's probably going to let you go without much of a fight. You could even lower with some banks 500,000, but I mean, if you're owing 300,000, the bank typically doesn't fight too hard to sort of keep you there, because they know that you're probably going to get a little bit of a saving somewhere else, but they're writing 50 loans a day with much bigger clips. So as far as the negotiating side, yes, it happens in my industry and it happens in what I do. People tend to project that it's much bigger than it's a much bigger part of what we do. It's more so fitting square pegs in round holes, so to speak, but where that comes with getting you the loan, keeping you at a certain bank. Again, it just comes down to the bank's appetite to keep you there, and we have very limited oversight as to what can happen with that regard. That's the truth. Yeah.
So, what are some misconceptions about how banks operate that people might have?
Firstly, I suppose why the brokerage industry is what it is in Australia. So banks have sort of enabled brokers to flourish because we, as of 2018, I believe, we have to abide by something called the best interest duty, or BID.
Okay.
So I have to provide you rationale before I submit your loan as to why this loan is not unsuitable for you. It doesn't have to be suitable.
Unsuitable.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be suitable. It has to be not unsuitable for you.
Okay.
There's a very distinct line there. And again, it's all part of the veil.
Process that double negative.
Yeah. So we have to basically justify why we're taking you to a particular bank. So let's say Bank Australia has the best rate, or Newcastle Permanent, or ING, and I'm taking you to ANZ. I have to provide you reason as to why.
Yeah.
And it may well be that, ANZ's self-employed policy is amazing, which it is, and, ING's is not, as an example. And so therefore, that's why we're honing in on these banks, and these are a set of options. If you were to walk into a branch at John Doe Bank, because they don't know and they don't need to know what else is out in the market, all they have to say is, oh, you fit? No worries. We're going to write your loan. So they don't have to do what's in your best interest. They have to do what's in their best interest.
Yeah.
So that's sort of number one. And that's why people more and more are choosing to use brokers, because we have to abide by this rule. And that's with any loan, whether it be a personal loan, a car loan, or a home loan, that are governed under NCCP. Another misconception from the banks is, I think, my bank will take care of me because I've banked with them forever. I mean, again, maybe it was a thing 20, 30, 40 years ago. If you don't fit their credit policy, I am very sorry to say you're probably going to want to inquire with me or a broker in general, because this is why credit policies are created. because
So break that down for a second.
so credit policy basically is a set of guidelines, lending guidelines that the bank will put on a document, and they'll say, okay, this is the target market that we're sort of looking for.
Yeah.
So Bank A and Bank B, right? I'll give you an example. So Bank A will lend to any postcode anywhere in Australia, whether it be in the middle of the bush, whether it'll be, Bondi Beach. Mm-hmm. They'll lend anywhere to any type of security or any type of home.
Yep.
Basically on the face of Australia.
Yeah.
But in order to mitigate their risk in doing that, they'll tune up their borrowing capacity calculators to make sure, or to basically put a bigger sort of benchmark on that end. So they'll say, we'll give you whatever money you want for any property you want, but you have to jump over this hurdle to get it.
Yeah.
Whereas Bank B will say, we'll only lend to metropolitan areas, but we'll assess your income at a much lower benchmark. Yeah. So they're mitigating their risk at all times. So where one bank will give you X, the other bank will give you Y. The bigger the bank, the bigger the risk for appetite, because, if, one of the big four were to foreclose on a loan, drop in the ocean. Bank of, community bank in somewhere in regional areas, you foreclose or you default on your loan, they're going to feel it a lot more. Yeah. And so that's basically what a credit policy does, is it mitigates their risk, and it basically gives them rules and guidelines for the credit assessor to say, do you fit? Do you fit? Do you fit? And then they work off that framework for them to approve or decline loans. Yeah. So it's just basically the 10 commandments for every bank.
Do you think that there can still be a community? Maybe you seen It's a Wonderful Life?
No.
So George Bailey is he's the head of the bank. Reluctantly, he wants to go travel the world, but he has to stay and do the bank.
Me too.
And oh really? Yeah. But he brings a real sense of community. Like, there's bank rush, and he's like, James, we can't give you your money. It's in Harry's house, and
all right,
and stuff like that. So he knows everyone, and he's talking to each other, and it's nice. But it's a film from the 40s, right?
Right.
And then so now we've got policies and risk, and is so regulated.
Yep.
Can there be a person to person? Can we say, Jim, you can't have your money, it's in Harry's house?
Look, having seen what I've seen, no. I think there is... How would I frame this? I think the relationship is definitely there. It can exist. But banks have gotten so big that the person that you speak to today will likely not be there the next week or the next month.
Yeah.
So having that relationship of Lindsay will pay the loan back, I know for a fact she will, no. Because you're playing with other people's money. And I think that's the whole credit system, right? And for me personally, when I look at clients, the first question that I ask myself is, would I lend them my own money?
Yeah.
Because if the answer is no, I should have no business submitting that file to the bank. Right?
Yeah, okay.
Because a common misconception, I think this is the biggest one, is, what if the bank declines me? The reality is the broker is seeing all of your documentation. He's understanding all of your information. It's the broker, from my perspective, that should be saying, don't do this or do this. And I suppose that's a conflict that we deal with every single day, because if I do the loan for you, I make money. And if I don't do the loan for you, I don't make money. But the onus should be on us as a first sort of emergency stop to say, these are your expenses, and really lay it out in front of them, because sometimes it's a hard truth to tell. But should you really be buying a home if your income is 300,000 and you have 10K in savings and 20 grand in credit card debt?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And again, somebody that knows them may be under the impression that they're high income earners, they live the life, they have $1,000 dinners, they're good for it. And that's where the relationship then, maybe that person gives them the loan.
Yeah, okay.
And they don't see under the hood.
So the mortgage broker can have that relationship.
I think so.
But the bank will struggle to.
I think the bank will struggle to just because of how big it is.
And the processes and the regulation.
Correct.
And
the
system they have to put in place.
Correct. Because then they'll have to basically, like if I'm a home lender on a branch network, let's say I take care of the eastern suburbs, I have to be across everybody at all times. And typically, personally with my clients, I will call them every 6 months, even if it's just a hello, how you going? I do it for 2 reasons. I do it, number one, simply because I just want to say hi, because we chat a lot during the application process, and then you settle, and then you're just like, oh, I don't need you. And, off you go. So it's good to catch up with them. But on the second, I feel like once they've trusted you with their home loan, or once they've trusted you to sort of look at what they're actually doing with their money, because it can be very personal, they then will be a little bit more open perhaps in, my mortgage is keeping me up at night, or, the school fees are due, or maybe we need a new car. Is there anything there that we can do? Or maybe their credit cards have gotten out of control. Is there anything that we can do? And obviously, to be honest with you, it is a bit of a sales call, but at the same time, it's also, are you okay? Because financial stress is something that is not talked about.
Yeah.
And to your point earlier, the shame that comes with it. I think, like my mum.
That's why you don't talk about it.
Yeah, my mum, as, a single mum, providing for myself and my sister, growing up, she'd work 2-3 jobs at a time. And she, to this day, she sort of finds, it's sort of like a little bit of old school shame in that, she didn't have the high flying corporate job where she could give us everything. But, if you can sort of lend an ear to someone like her back in the day, then, hey, let's potentially try to solve this together. As opposed to you just staying up at night looking at your ceiling saying, what am I going to do tomorrow? Or for the next month. Do you know what I mean?
And it causes a lot
Exactly. It trickles down.
Horrible things to happen.
Yeah, it trickles down. So I felt it, my sister felt it, when my mum would, human as she is, would be frustrated or annoyed.
Yep.
It trickles down to us, and we sort of understood it, thankfully, and we sort of were able to mitigate it and explain it away. And now that we're both grown up, we laugh about it because we know that my mum, her story is crazy, but she took all these risks, financial and otherwise, to give us a better life. And that's what I think any parent, and I take extra care with parents because, everyone says to me, oh, what's my maximum borrowing limit? I'll tell you, you don't have to worry about that, but
that's your maximum.
Yeah, that's your maximum. But you're not just messing with your own life. Your kids are going to feel this if you can't pay your mortgage.
It's like saying, what's my maximum gambling?
Yeah, exactly right.
You're not going to spend all of it. You shouldn't.
How much cash do I have in the bank? Oh, I have 5,000. Let's go to the casino and put it on red. Yeah. You know what I mean? What's my max? It's no, you have to look at it from a long-term perspective, or at least a 2 to 5 year perspective, right? I mean, predicting 10 years from now is a bit unrealistic. So, yeah.
So if the banks are wrapped up in process,
yes,
and you're a mediator,
yes,
and you're seeing a lot of lack of education, yes, and instances where people have been shamed and put under financial stress.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the bank's role to be able to provide ways out of that? Education?
I think education is the number one step as to who provides that. I don't have an answer. I don't know. I think.
Isn't it funny?
Yeah. I mean,
it seems like, I don't know if it's changed, but certainly as a 42-year-old, I never had good financial education. Yeah. Still probably haven't. But Like, whose job is it?
Yeah. Look, I think a lot of it, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I learned, I went through some pretty rigorous training at, ironically enough, when I left the bank, I actually went through harder training there than when I started at the bank, which I found kind of funny. But banking and broking they're almost like netball and basketball. You're still putting the ball through the hoop, but they're completely different sports.
Yeah, okay.
I've met a lot of bankers who struggle broking because broking is, an a la carte menu, and banking is a food truck. You're serving one or two things.
Yeah, okay.
As to who can provide that information, I think there's an onus on the banks to not give you, a terms and conditions pamphlet with a bunch of jargon in it that doesn't mean anything to you.
It's not a great user experience.
It's not. And you have to really understand that this thing is with you for years. People will see it as, like these investors that have made a bit of money over the last 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Is it your expertise or is it just low interest rates? What about your particular process made this happen? And if you can educate me on it, for sure. But I've personally met a lot of people that have made a lot of money just because the interest rates got lower.
Yeah.
And from the bank's perspective, that's great because they're going to continue making money. So investing for an education from their perspective, I think would be extremely beneficial for everybody. But I think the reason brokers exist is because they need to educate. That beyond anything else, before getting your loan approved, they need to educate you.
Well, it's like the trifecta of trust, isn't it? It's like, it's the same with governments. You can't have the government and the people without the media.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's the same. You can't have the bank and the people without that third.
Yeah. Keeping everyone accountable.
There.
Yeah. That's actually a really good way to look at it.
Keeping everyone honest.
Yeah.
And
like an independent third party.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really good way I've never seen it that way. But yeah, that's actually a really good way to look at it. Like independent journalism sort of keeps the government in check and relates that to everyone. That's actually a really good way. I'm going to use that. That's actually really good.
Maybe it's like, you're never going to have a relationship with the bank. Or can you? Can you send a Christmas card to the bank?
I think you don't know who's going to get it. But somebody will get it. Look, I think the way banks are set up right now with the digitization happening and branches closing, you're more than likely to speak to somebody in a call center. Myself included, I will go out and see clients if they're in Sydney Metro, if they so wish.
Yeah.
But it's the same as sort of, Uber Eats. Do you just order on your phone and have a digital experience, or do you go into the actual physical location and eat there? There's two very different propositions. So like the bank digitizing everything now, or most banks digitizing their entire processes. Are you going to have a relationship with the person that you speak to for an hour or two to get your loan approved? And are they going to want to keep speaking to you long term because they're trying, they have their own goals. Perhaps they want to become the manager. Perhaps they want to become the state manager or the general manager. Or perhaps they want to move from home lending to commercial lending within that same bank. Yeah. And you don't have any commercial lending requirements. So managing that relationship, then they have to pass you on to somebody else who doesn't know you from a bar of soap. That's the sort of, that's to me is where the bank, if they had sort of a relationship type team, it'd be valuable. But then you run into the same brick wall of the client can have the best relationship with these guys, but if they don't fit the credit policy, you're out again. Do you know what I mean?
They've got a very specific type.
Exactly. That's all it is. It's just like, hey, here's your dating profile. Is a bank going to swipe right? And, everyone's unique. There's no such thing as a no in finance, ever.
Yeah. Well, you might not fit the dating profile now.
Correct.
But there's opportunities.
There's ways to do it. right? Like, okay, you're, you have land right now and I won't lend to you. Put a house on it. I'll give you the best rate on the market.
Yeah.
Right? Or your default is, you currently have a default on your credit file and you can't borrow money for the next 5 years. Year 6, everything else ticks off and this thing comes off your credit file. I'll give you the best rate on the market. So there's never a no. And that's something that I want to sort of project to everybody. Somebody is going to lend you money. What you have to decide, and again, that's why the mediator has to be there, is I will give you my own money if you want. I'll charge you 40%, but I'll give it to you, right? How badly do you want that? Do you want it at 40%, or do you say to yourself, I want this at this particular price?
Yeah.
Right? And that's where the client needs to be informed, because I've had clients say to me, I'm willing to do anything to get this property. And then when you tell them, well, the bank that will lend you or the lender that will give you this money is going to charge you 7.5 as opposed to 6.4, they're like, oh, that's too expensive. It's like, well, no, you won't do anything for this property because you won't even pay 1% over, right? And that's where
that comes back to the negotiation. There's always going to be it's not going to be a perfect ride.
No, there's always sticking points, and that's, again, it's an easier conversation if I tell the clients, like, this is why this is the only place you qualify based on everything you've told me, based on all the information you've provided me.
Yeah.
I believe that this is your best option and it's in your best interest and it's not unsuitable for you.
So if someone doesn't fit the dating profile, what can they do?
Plan, budget, understand what's wrong, or what doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And, finance is a very short-term memory game.
And there's people out there to help. Hey.
Of course. Yeah. I think the first...
Like going to the gym or,
Exactly. Yeah. So, like, I think, like, with Luke from Odyssey Health and Fitness, shout out to him.
Yeah.
So I actually went to Luke, and it's a perfect analogy because he gave me, honestly, just 3 tips on how to train my body. And I was thinking about it at the gym, and it gave me a sense of training with a purpose. When you budget, you can make the direct correlation between that and budgeting. Budgeting with a purpose. Cutting certain things down, because the one thing that I found, and everyone says, people don't change. That's fine. I think people's spending habits are harder to change than your entire personality. Your spending habits says a lot about you.
Agreed.
And that's, again, if you put people's budgets or people's expenses over the last 6 months onto a table and average it out and show it to them, most people will not believe it, or they'll refuse to accept that that's what they've done.
Or they don't want to show you at all.
Or they don't want to share it at all. So, but doing that and saying, okay, you spent this amount on cafes and avocado, whatever, right? And if you say to them, hey, you know what? This may be the thing stopping you, but mitigate it. Maybe cut the whole thing down by 10%. Don't go, don't ever go out again and, never have a meal out ever again.
Yeah.
But adjusting that to fit what you want to do long term, that's the most powerful thing. And I think if people had that education behind them of understanding, hey, I should set a budget. That's the conversation I have most frequently with people. Set a budget. Nothing else. There's no magic pill, you know what I mean? Unless you can find a way to avoid tax completely.
Yeah.
And if you do, call me. But, it's all about take accountability for your finances. It's harder to do when your money is a number on the screen and it's not coming physically out of your hand.
Yeah.
But the onus should be on you as much as it is on the broker and the bank.
Yeah. Interesting, because that kind of went into a conversation about relationships with institutions, really.
Yes.
Whether that's as a bank or as a metaphor for something else. I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Having that third party.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. I used to see brokers not in a very good light myself back when I was at the bank because they were sort of the competition. But when I jumped into the game, I realized the power behind choice. I can, as a banker, only educate you on my product.
Yeah.
And there's a whole marketplace.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's why perhaps Amazon got so big. Do you know what I mean? Choice. They give you choice. eBay gives you choice.
Yeah.
People
and
now.
ease. Everyone's lazy.
Yeah. And people now want, you know, instead of going to call up that one restaurant, they jump on Menulog, they jump on Uber Eats, and they have the choice at their fingertips instead of perhaps staying loyal to that one, you know, restaurant that isn't on Uber Eats.
Well, yeah. You're loyal until
something cheaper comes up. Exactly, until there's a better choice out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall the education piece for me is it's something that I want to push on people. And it's not for everyone. You know, there'll always be people that say, I want that house. And, you know, if you say no to me, then I'm going to go somewhere else and somebody's going to do my loan. Okay, that's completely fine. But, you know, I'm sleeping well at night. I think you should sleep well at night. Yeah. And if you're, you know, I tell people, if you're going to want to do this, by all means, you know, and I'm very upfront, I will make money off you. No worries. But you need to know what happens if it all goes wrong.
Yeah.
And if you're still going to go ahead, I want to make money. Let's do it, right?
Yeah.
But you need to play devil's advocate. And again, to the earlier point, because they've got so much confirmation bias, they're being targeted by media, by social media, they're being told this is what they should perhaps be doing. You know, you should be buying property. Now is the right time. You know, do you deserve a new car? It's end of financial year. You know, the repayments are only $500 a month. You know, and you get a brand new Lexus or whatever else. You know, and you want better for yourself. You want better for your kids. You want better for your family.
Yeah.
But it's important to have that in the back of your mind. Better is good, yes. What is your risk tolerance? What does your budget look like? If you don't have one, make one, you know, and really just look introspectively before you seek out help. I think that's the sort of understanding that I want sort of to become a bit more prevalent in the market.
I'm just talking to a person. Hey.
Yeah, I muck around way too much with my clients. But yeah, I think the personal relationship is paramount. And you know, knowing that I don't judge them in anything they do, because I've been there myself. You know, I've gotten in trouble with a credit card before. You know, I've had a car loan that I couldn't afford that I took. You know, when I was young, you know, I'm 33, but
what did you get?
My first car was a WRX.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was like the new. It wasn't that. I know what you're thinking. It wasn't that old shape. It was a new shape, and I got a really, really good interest rate. It was like 3%. And the lady looked at me and she said, "You can afford these repayments." I was like, "Yeah, of course I can. I live at home. I don't pay for anything." I was paying my mom a bit of rent, and I was giving up 40% of my take-home pay fortnightly to this loan. And 18 months in, I was just like, I can't do this anymore, and I had to sell it.
Yeah.
So, but I felt it because I had this flashy car, but one thing I didn't get told at the dealership, the insurance is going to be massive. Petrol is going to be massive.
All the other stuff.
Right. All the other stuff. Exactly. I'm under 30, your insurance is huge for a sports car.
And how would you know?
And how would I know? Exactly. Nobody told me. And, looking at my budget back then, I wasn't really saving money. I was giving up sometimes going out with my friends because I have a car loan to pay. Yeah. Like I have this flashy car and I'm just sitting at home, like twiddling my fingers, So there's no real judgment. I think sort of obviously that relationship allows the trust, but I'm very, I'm very open with the stuff that I've gone through. I don't see any shame in it. I think the more you can provide.
That's right.
Yeah.
Take out the shame.
Yeah, take out the shame.
Be a person.
Yeah.
And get the goal you want. Play the system.
Yeah, play the system. And, just save money and do better for yourself because, money is extremely important. Yeah. People that say, more money it's not going to fix your problems,
Ariana disagrees. Ariana Grande said that that's not true.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, if I won the Powerball last night,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Same.
Yeah, right? So, but, knowing what to do with it, how to budget it, how to maximize it, and really being smart with it. It may not fix everything, but it gives you options.
And where can people find you on the old internet?
So you can find me on loanmarketapex.com.au. You can inquire through there on the Get Started button. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, Loan Market Apex.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Julio. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
That was awesome.